welcome, agents, to State of the Game for September 15th.
The Elite Task Force, for example. So last week we had a bunch of players that came here, 13 players, part of what we call the Elite Task Force. They stayed at Massive for 3 days. These guys are still under NDA. There are a lot of things we talked about that they are not allowed to say or to give details, but we will let them talk about it as we reveal some of the details with 1.4. But there have already been some good content that has been created. So if you want to find out more about their version, their vision of how the event went, there have been some very good stuff that was posted out there. So Deep Fried Dave put a very complete write-up on Reddit about the experience. There are a few videos that have been created, Upper Echelon Gamers. Chris actually made videos, also a couple of videos already about it, so you can go to their channel and check it out. So yeah, there was a video that was posted last night by SkillUp, who actually
Eric's did it.
Had an interview. Perfect. Thank you, Eric's. Yeah, so SkillUp made an interview with Dave also to go through some of the things and the experience and all of that, so you can look at that as well. But know that we are not going to have any big changes of Dark Zone mechanics in 1.4.
No,
so
not the dedicated Dark Zone mechanics, right? Like the rogue system isn't going to be receiving changes and that sort of thing.
There are a lot of changes, and again, what Drew is going to talk about will definitely have an impact on Dark Zone. Yeah. But don't expect big changes of the rules of the Dark Zone for 1.4. So we just want to be clear about that. But keep the discussion going, though, because this is interesting for us. PTS. So yeah, we delayed the PTS. Sorry. Bummer.
Yes, but for good reason.
It's good. It's very good.
Yeah. So yeah, we've delayed it. We explained that the build we had was not good enough, and if we would have released it with the build we had at this point, the feedback that wouldn't have been a good representation of what we want to give you for 1.4. Yeah. And we know that the PTS doesn't have to be perfect, and it won't be perfect. But still, there are things that we realized, and we realized with the Elite Task Force, there are things that are really key to making sure that you can give us feedback that's going to be valuable to us. So yeah, we didn't have that ready to open it today. We are looking at hopefully opening the PTS next week, but this is still to be confirmed. Okay, we are trying to make it happen, but it could be that it's going to take a bit longer.
So a big thing that we've been focusing on has been time to kill.
Yes.
And also time to be killed.
Yes.
Right, because we know that's not where it needs to be in Endgame. The first issue is that in the Endgame, enemies are just too bullet spongy, and they deal way too much damage too, right?
Way too much.
Yeah. And then we also know that for the vast majority of players, their build doesn't matter that much unless they have a completely optimized build. Yeah. So there's a few builds that you can have in our game today that are almost necessary to play the game at Endgame, right? If you don't have those builds, you're not having a great time.
Yeah,
right? Sure. And that, of course, puts a lot of pressure on the RNG. That puts a lot of pressure on just in loot drops in general, and it has this ripple effect, right?
Totally.
Kind of related to that, the game is too difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't have a max smart cover or max pulse,
exactly,
someone with Sentry in your group, it's
there's extremely limited choice for building an effective build because there really are only a couple optimal paths, and that's not super cool, right? For an RPG, we're an RPG shooter or a shooter RPG. And you want to be able to create different builds, experiment, and have them all be viable. But right now, there's only a couple that are.
Yep. Exactly.
And then there's just too much variability in your gear and weapon effectiveness.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times you get loot drops and they're just completely trash, right?
Time to kill, right? So in your testing, you had comparisons, right? Because do you want to explain about why level 12 is important? Because people are probably saying level 12.
Yeah,
why level 12, right?
Yeah, so level 12 is kind of our baseline, and that's what we balanced our entire game around without kind of the scaling, because we know that at level 12 we kind of make the game a little bit easier for players at the beginning as they're getting used to the game. So when you're playing in Brooklyn, the enemies die really fast. They don't deal very much damage, things like that.
Yeah.
But at level 12, everything is kind of normalized. The gear drops are pretty reliable, so that we know that you're in basically full green at level 12. Yeah. So that's been kind of our basis of kind of all our beginning of our balance work, right?
All right, cool. And then obviously level 30 is the end game. So we'll head back into that graph and kind of show you what we're talking about here. Yeah. So along the bottom there, you see enemy level difference. What that means is, for example, the 0 point on there. That's enemies of your own level.
Yeah.
If they are +5. So like here, if I'm enemy level difference 0, at level 12, that's my 0 point, and then +5, that'll be, if I'm level 12 and fighting against level 17, that's
exactly. Yep.
All right, so if we just bring up the first plot point, all right, so that is, if you're using optimized gear at level 12, like I'm level 12, I fully optimized my gear.
It's just like here, it's just average gear.
It's just average gear, yep.
No, this one is the optimized.
No, that's not the optimized.
In this one, it's just the average, yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yep,
Sorry.
you are. Yeah. Yep, it's all right.
All right. Okay, I'm giving away all the spoilers.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, I mean, the time to kill does increase.
It does. It does. As you face higher level enemies, it makes sense, right?
That
the time to kill would go up
a
little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
That
exactly.
Cool. But at level 30, can we just bring up the next one? I mean, that's...
Look at that.
Look at
that.
That's pretty much the experience.
It's crazy.
That a lot of people are getting. And your testing doesn't even take into account the worst case scenario.
Oh, absolutely not.
Or what some people would consider
exactly.
worst and best case scenarios.
Yeah.
This is pretty homogenized.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what some people are pointing out in chat, and that's the whole point here, is that level 12, the time to kill is linear. I mean, it's like the difference between a level 13 or level 14 or level 15 is also always pretty much the same. Whereas you see starting from level 30, then it gets completely exponential and it goes completely off the charts.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's you see that +5 enemy level difference. That's what your experience in heroic goes to. It gets very, very different. Anyway, let's move on to the one that I was actually getting ahead of myself on before.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about it a bit before? I don't know what's
No, it was just...
That's pretty clear. And
okay,
this next one kind of exemplifies that similar thing.
Yeah.
So this is the one I was talking about with optimized gear. Again, we're using the level 12 versus level 30 example.
Yes.
Again, so this now should make sense. This first plot point that we're going to bring up in just a second, this shows optimized gear at level 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, now I'm not losing my mind. And that kind of shows what we had before, right?
Yeah.
It feels good, like we said. Anyone who's played at that level, can kind of understand. Can we bring up the next plot point? So this is what you get with what kind of gear? Like, just...
Yeah, so this is like kind of your best gear, right, for your level. So at level 12, we're talking blues.
All right, but not optimized in terms of stats or that sort of thing. Okay.
Right.
All right, so the next plot point is going to be optimized gear at level 30. So again, it's not great. You can see that curve starting to hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this would be if you're still in your best gear, like all gear caps, like 255 gear score, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. All right, but then if we show the next one, that's what happens if you don't have optimized gear.
Yeah.
But
you have great gear. You still have the same gear score.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's that huge variance. I think what's important there is to look at the gaps between optimized and best gear for each of those two levels, right? You can see that the gap between the 2 points at level 12 and the 2 points at level 30 are they open right up.
Yep.
And again, they are actually in reality
much bigger.
Much bigger, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. If we talk about mods, right?
Weapon mods, yeah. Weapon mods and gear mods.
And gear mods.
Okay.
Because it's actually a very similar story.
Okay.
So at level 12,
yeah,
your mods only contribute about 6% of your time to kill or time to be killed.
Okay.
Right? 6%.
Just effectiveness in general.
Very small effect, right?
Right.
But I mean, in an RPG, like 6% is like, it's okay, I guess, but it's kind of small, right?
Mm-hmm.
At level 30, it's more than 40%. So skills, another interesting thing to look at, right? So we know that skills increase the DPS of a player, and specifically, right, I'm talking about DPS increasing skills like Pulse and Smart Cover.
Yeah.
By more than 78% at level 30.
That's a lot.
Okay, which is a lot, especially considering this is when you don't specialize in electronics.
So this isn't even...
So this is a completely balanced player who's like, I don't really care about electronics. I don't care. I'm just going to use these two things. They're going to get huge benefits, right?
Exactly. But if you cap out skill power, then it gets crazy.
Yeah. Oh, like way, way more than that, right?
Yeah.
And it's also something weird that happens, right? Like the the increase in the power of specifically Pulse
Mm-hmm.
increases from level 12 to level 30, even though you're not specializing in electronics.
Okay.
That's weird.
So all of a sudden it gets 1.5 times more effective at level 30. Endgame was kind of balanced, right, for the outliers,
yeah.
right? Which is a problem.
Yeah. Especially because they are outliers by such a huge factor, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And because the gap between our best players
Mhm.
and our kind of average players is so large,
Mhm.
and we happen to balance for the best players,
Yeah.
it means the game is just almost,
It's super hard for so many people, right?
yeah,
Like, it's
exactly.
just-
I mean, it's just frustration for
Yeah.
the average player. And if we talk about numbers, right?
yeah.
Like, we kind of estimate that the gap between the kind of worst player at a level versus the best player at a level
Mhm.
is about plus or minus 150%,
Mhm.
right? In terms of time to kill and time to be killed.
Okay.
And that's at level 12, right?
All right.
And so 3 times. Okay, that seems fairly reasonable.
Yeah.
But then we look at level 30,
Yeah.
and it's like 250% plus or minus. So
Okay.
5 times, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's not considering, signature skills,
Yeah.
actually like min-maxing and things like that. Because if you do that, we think the number is actually closer to 10 times.
Yeah.
10
Yeah,
times.
10 times.
Easy,
If-
probably,
Which is
yeah.
huge,
it's like,
right?
Yeah, it is.
That's really big. So it's kind of the takeaways, right, from this was that enemies with a greater level than the player, they're just too powerful after
Yeah,
level
yeah,
30,
exactly.
right? Like, that's not fun. The other takeaway is the gap between the worst and the best players, it just grows too large
Yeah.
in the end game. We
Yeah.
need to make that a little bit more forgiving for
Mhm.
the players in the bottom, right?
Definitely.
And kind of bring everyone up
yeah.
a little bit, right? Or at least
Exactly.
closer to the best. Not we still want that gap, right?
Yeah, you
because
still need variation. Like, there
Yeah,
has to be-
exactly.
it has to be rewarding to optimize
Yeah.
your gear.
Yeah. Like if you're a really smart player and you know how to optimize,
Yeah.
like you should be better.
Yeah. That, of course.
Like we know that, but you
Yeah.
shouldn't be 10 times better.
yeah, that's a bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Like, it's a bit out of control.
Yeah, exactly. We know that mods become too powerful in the end
Yep.
game,
Yeah, by a lot.
especially when you talk about handling and things like that.
Mm.
Like they turn your guns into laser cannons and they increase the DPS a ton.
Yeah, I think that's something that I experienced going through 1 to 30 again. The guns felt like guns. 'Cause
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember
You actually have
like,
to aim, right?
in the alpha, which was 4 to 8, levels 4 to 8, and you picked up like an AK-47. Sure, it's powerful, but it's like
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's cool, like because
Yeah.
you play differently. But right now everything's just
That's
like,
the first thing you notice when you start over again from level 1 and everything. It's the handling of the guns, which
Yep.
is like, oh my god, I forgot that it's like
Yeah.
that.
yeah.
But what's cool, right, is when we have a little bit more handling on the guns,
Mm.
it means that we can effectively decrease the health of the NPCs,
Yeah, exactly.
right? Because if
Yeah.
the guns handle super well, it
Yeah.
means you're landing more shots, which means your DPS is higher,
Yeah.
which means the enemy health needs to be higher to compensate because
Yeah.
we still want similar time to kills.
Exactly.
We know that skills become too powerful in the end game without specializing in skill
Yeah.
power.
Mhm.
Or actually, I mean electronics. I don't mean skill power.
Yeah.
Because you get skill power from your gear pieces, of course. And we know that Smart Cover and Pulse tend to be the most used and the best kind of skills
By
for
far.
most
Yeah.
players,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, talking about fixes then, right? So,
Yeah.
where do we go from here?
Okay.
The fun stuff. So, the first thing we're doing
Yes.
is we're fixing enemy health
Yes.
and damage, scaling post level 30, so it matches the 1 to 30 curve.
Can we just bring up the time to be killed video? And this will kind of loop. You'll still be able to hear us. But you can very quickly see that what we're going to have for you later. I think it's about 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So, I
So-
think the first guy on the left dies in about 2 seconds.
Yeah, you see the health bar that just goes down directly.
And again, you guys know that if you've played the game, your experience can be a lot more severe than this.
yeah.
Yep.
Like it can. You guys. Well, I say you guys, but us too. Like
Yeah, right.
in the underground, like you, like in heroic mode, like you get one shot a lot, even with good gear. This isn't level 35 NPCs. This is 33.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly. This is way worse if you're running
Yeah.
heroic
oh
incursions,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Or like
I mean,
someone's-
that's like a tenth of a second instead
exactly.
of.
And someone says
yeah.
like, "Show shotgunners, please." Like, yeah, this isn't shotgunners. This isn't even snipers.
Right.
But this is just, again, an indication of, in this one specific instance where you're fighting against
Yeah.
this one enemy, and you're basically not doing anything. Can we take a look at time to kill
Yeah.
quickly? So this is again a similar.
Yeah, so it's
So
the
this is
same,
exactly the same.
the same
example.
context, except this time we are killing the NPC.
Is this the example where you're using the ACR? Is it?
Yeah, yeah. So this is an ACR unmodded.
Okay.
Yep.
And people know this isn't the best gun in the game by far. But again, just for the purpose of testing.
Yeah, and again, not really optimized build or whatever. Also,
Yeah.
of course, the experience in game would be completely different, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
Still.
this is so right now in this example, time to kill is about half,
Yeah.
half the size. But you will again, if you optimize your gear and you're not using an ACR, if you're using something a bit better than that.
Yeah.
Okay, the whole weapon thing is a discussion for a different day. But
Yeah.
that's definitely going to change.
yeah,
So we basically were reworking the way that Endgame works and Endgame
Okay.
scaling works.
Right.
Players
Yes.
in 1.4
Yes.
can now select the world level when they hit Endgame.
Okay, world level is
Ah.
a new thing that
Woo!
that you guys have never heard of. World level is a new
Yeah.
thing. All right. What does world level mean?
Yeah, so what world level means is you are able to set the entire world, so all of the NPCs and all of the rewards you get
Okay.
to a certain level.
All right. People are freaking out.
Whoa!
Okay. Yeah, like
what does that mean?
What does this mean?
Explain.
yeah. What does
yes.
that mean? Yeah, yeah.
So when you hit level 30, like so
Yep.
pre-level 30, forget about world level, right?
Yep.
That doesn't matter.
Don't have to care about it.
So run me through this. I ding level 30, what happens?
Yep. So you ding level 30,
Yeah.
you get a little notification that says, hey, you can now set your entire game world to level 30.
Okay.
Right? And we're going to put you in something we call world level tier 1. So, okay, so you choose the world level, and that is going to change all NPCs
Yeah,
Oh,
um,
damn it.
in the in missions,
yeah.
in the open world,
Yeah.
which I'm really excited about because that
Yes.
means we're bringing back named roamers.
We are bringing back the open world.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice.
Underground, incursions,
Yeah.
and the dark zone. Now, big disclaimer with the dark zone.
Yeah.
We're still going to place you in the bracket that you belong in because we don't want really good players ganking
Yeah, to
low-level players, right?
Go
Like,
to
we don't want that.
Go to a lower
Right.
bracket. Yeah.
All right, Drew, so what do we see here? Obviously, I see world bracket 1, but you can also change the bracket.
Yeah. So on the top left, yeah, you have the world bracket.
Yes. Right.
All right. Cool.
So up here we see the new world bracket. So that's tier 1. You see the little globe icon with a 1 next to it. And you see a little notification that says, hey, there's a new bracket available.
All right. And then
So you
something
can
like
select
that's gonna
one.
happen.
Oh, and here's our menu.
Yeah.
So this is the player changing the world level. So tier 1, of course, is everything is level 30.
Yeah.
And I should point out that the rewards are all 163, or up to 163,
Yes.
Cool.
right?
Right, I'm back.
So there is, of course, a small chance that you could get a drop from someone that is 182,
Yeah.
That's cool.
which is pretty cool, I think.
All right.
But yes, so when you finish a mission, all of those things, you're going to get 163.
Yeah.
And 163 is going to make you overpowered for level 30 enemies.
So there is an important note about 163
Yes.
because we are also doing a couple changes to gear score.
Aha, we are.
So
Okay.
when you say 163, that's
Yeah.
not only high-end 163,
Yes,
that's also gear sets,
it is.
right?
It is.
Yes. So they won't be like gear sets won't be inflated at the same
Yeah.
level.
Yes.
Right, okay.
So gear sets are now going to be more reflective of their actual power.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
I guess it's clearer in the extreme example where
yeah,
max level gear sets will all be 229,
Yeah.
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So there's
Exactly.
there's no 268s anymore. It's just a flat 229, making them the same as your favorite
Yeah.
reckless chest piece, your
Yeah.
savage gloves,
Yeah, exactly.
229 flat. So the
So-
max gear score will be
yeah.
229.
Yep, 229.
Yeah.
So yeah, just to make
Okay.
it clear, because so people don't get confused, we are not adding new gear score of gear sets. We are just basically changing the gear score of the gear sets that exist.
Yep.
So the ones that were, what was it, 191 was the first tier of gear set, I think.
Yeah,
I
Will
think
be
so.
163. The 214 will be 182.
182, yep.
The 240 will be 204. and the 268 will be 229.
229.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they're on the same gear score as the high-end items.
Which also means actually, and maybe this is a topic for another discussion. Sorry if I spoil something, but it means that
No, it's cool.
orange items,
Yeah.
they're going to be better
Yep.
because they need to be on par with gear sets,
Yeah.
right?
That's cool.
So, yeah.
That's awesome, man. Okay, so going back to setting your world level. I mean, you guys
Yeah.
might have covered it, but it might actually be worth, not just for me, but for everyone at home to do it. So I get to level 30. I can set all of the NPCs in the world to level 30.
Yep.
Open world and dark zone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Did you
Dark
guys
Zone,
say
we
that?
talked about
Right.
Dark Zone. There was the exception of it selects for you,
Yes.
but it generally will match that. But what it means is in the Dark Zone, if you are placed in that first tier,
Yeah.
all the enemies are level 30.
Yes.
All of them.
Yeah.
Guys, just to clarify, when Drew says orange, he means high end.
I'm sorry.
High-end.
Yep.
Yeah, gold.
There is some
Developer speak.
There's some
Yeah.
internal confusion over if that yellow is yellow or orange because it's kind of gold and
Yeah.
no,
So-
there's no new tier
Yep.
of
Sorry.
anything.
High end. Sorry.
One other quick mention about gear score, because I think just to make it clear also, when we say like a 268 gear set item will now be 229, we are not nerfing the gear set. We are changing the value of its gear score just so it's more consistent with high-end items. And actually, on the contrary, we are more kind of buffing the high-end items to bring them on par with
Yeah. I mean,
gear sets.
The end result is you're going to be killing things a lot faster and you're going
Yeah.
to be surviving longer,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Yes.
But it's not, when we say we are changing from 268 to 229, that's not basically we're removing whatever, 30% of power. That's not how it works.
Okay. Maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I think it's important. So you set all of the enemies in the
Yep.
world to level 30,
Yep.
including in the PVE zone.
Yep.
Can we
In the PVE
Yeah.
zone.
So
So,
we talked
and
about
we're
the
bringing
open
back the
world.
name
okay, so-
roamers
okay,
as well.
we did say that. All right.
Yep.
Okay.
So
Great.
Bullet King lives again.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
He will live again and again and again.
Right.
Exactly.
And again.
So guys, remember when we talked about that whole that thing where people are bringing up, make the dark zone PVE. That's we now have outside the dark zone
Yeah.
where you can do.
Yeah.
those
Yeah, so
things.
if you want to farm PVE,
just
you
do it
can do
outside
it.
the dark zone.
right? And I don't want to spoil on the loot update. I feel like I'm spoiling everything.
No,
now.
I think
talk
but
about the
I
loot
think,
update.
I think
Yeah,
it's important.
But all enemies have a chance to drop
Yes.
the best gear.
Yes.
That's
so
the other one.
this is the other
Right.
thing. That's very, very cool. Okay. Again, there's a lot of details coming out right now. So to reiterate, what Drew's saying is, as a player, if I'm running around in the open world and I come across Bullet King, great. He's going to drop something for me. If I come across random dudes, no-name bosses, there's still a chance that you will get gear.
Yeah, just like
Okay.
in the 1 to 30 experience, right?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
you can get like the best or relevant gear. There's a percentage chance to get that from
Yeah.
trash mobs.
Yeah.
And that's not just in the open world. That's pretty much in all the activities except the incursions.
Not incursions.
Right. Incursions, we block that because, yeah.
Yeah. But the whole idea is that we no longer want you guys to have to go through this activity that's going to take like 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes, whatever, and only get the reward at the end. And then if you fail, it's super frustrating, it's super punishing because you
Yeah.
invested all this time and you didn't get anything. Now, all the time you invest is that many chances that you will actually get something on your way to the end reward because you may get some drops during the process.
Yeah, but we are keeping the difficulty settings of normal, hard, challenging, heroic. Now, heroic is only for incursions now.
Yep.
So we're removing it from underground, and we're removing it from some of the missions because we didn't do anything special. We
I'm gonna move
just
your mic a little bit.
yeah, sure thing.
There you go.
Oh.
What an
Drew-
intimate
Drew,
moment
I know,
caught
it's
on
all right.
camera.
That's okay. You got it.
But yeah, we didn't do anything except increase the NPC level, which
Yeah.
wasn't that exciting. And yeah, we want to get away from that because the game is a lot more
Yeah.
fun when
It
you're
was
fighting
weird.
enemies of
Yeah.
your level and dropping loot relevant to you. So anyways, the only difference, right? So you're thinking, why would I play hard or challenge mode?
Yeah.
So you're not going to get the best gear, or I'm sorry, you're not going to get better gear by playing hard or challenge or heroic mode than if you were playing normal.
Okay.
You're going to get more of it.
Okay. That is
That's a big
really-
change, right?
Okay, that's a really, really big change. So okay, I think it's kind of easier to run this through as like a player story, right? So I'm level
Yep.
30,
Yeah.
right? I'm a solo player that can do, normal That's cool. I'll
Yeah.
run through and I'll still get the best gear
Yep.
relevant for that level.
Absolutely.
For tier 1.
So
level.
163.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right? And if I get good enough and I can do it on challenging,
Yep.
I will get the same gear, just more of it.
But more of it.
All right. So like if I'm in a group, I could probably do challenging.
Yeah, exactly. And
Or-
kind of the way
Okay.
we expect it, or we want it to work, right? Is that if you are not super well geared and maybe you're not the most skilled player,
Yep.
then maybe normal is the optimal path for you to gear
Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
right? Or maybe you just like the time to kill and you like that level of challenge. You can play normal and you can get the best gear in the game.
All right. This is making people happy. I like it. Tears
Yeah.
of joy, I see.
And it's like it's not just about solo players. It's also for group. It's the same
Yeah.
because since you get more rewards out of higher difficulty, as a group you will probably not start with normal. You can directly start with hard,
Yeah,
or maybe
absolutely.
you can more
Yeah.
quickly start doing challenging. So you will actually get more rewards by doing the challenging. So just to continue with the player story. So you're
Yeah.
30. We said you're doing all this normal, hard, or challenge, or you go through normal, hard, challenge, or you just
Yeah.
farm normal, whatever. You get all these 163 items, and eventually you're geared up to close to
Yes.
163 gear score.
Right. So then you get a notification
Yeah.
that unlocks and it says, hey, the next tier is available.
Mm-hmm.
You can switch to it anytime you want. You can stay if you want, and you can really optimize your build for 163, or you can change the world level to tier 2, which is level 31 enemies.
Yeah.
So again, the open world, level 31,
Mm-hmm.
dark zone, all of that stuff, 31. And then you can get 182 gear.
Yeah. But then you
Right.
still get access to
Yep.
all the difficulties, so normal,
Yeah.
hard, challenging, but with
Yes.
31 enemies.
So it is worth pointing out, though, that challenge mode will not exist in tier 1. It'll unlock in tier 2,
Yeah,
and
okay.
heroic incursions will not exist until you reach tier 4.
Okay.
Okay.
Because that's the most hardcore content.
Yeah.
We want to kind of make sure that the players are completely geared up.
Yeah, that's the other clear
Yep.
thing to point out. There will be no level 34 or 35 NPCs.
Yep, none.
Yeah.
So the way it generally works is when you matchmake, you're only matchmaking for people in your tier.
Okay.
So in your current
Okay.
tier, if you are in tier 1, you are only going to matchmake with people in tier 1.
Okay.
Right? You are not going to be able to matchmake with people in tier 4. However, if you have a friend who is in tier 4 and he
Yeah.
invites you to your game, you can play with him in tier 4 content and you'll get the same drops.
Even
Yes.
though
So
you,
you can power level.
yeah, even though you
Yep.
couldn't be able to reach tier 4 yourself
Yep.
on your own.
As
but
long as your friend
if
invites
you're-
you to his
yeah.
game.
Okay, you can join him in
Yeah.
his tier. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And you'll directly get the 229 items that are coming
Yeah,
with
exactly.
tier 4.
Okay.
Exactly. So you
Yeah.
can, and then you'll eventually unlock, tier 4 yourself
All
because
right.
you've
Yeah.
been getting the
Sure.
gear.
Yeah.
So when we go from normal to hard,
Yeah.
we basically change all normal NPCs into veterans, the purple guys,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and then we change all veterans to elites, the yellow guys, right? Or
Yeah.
the orange
Cool.
guys, I guess, actually. Whatever color that is. The gold color, that's
The-
not
the
a
gold.
named one.
The high end.
So we do that for hard mode, but then challenge mode, we spawn completely new NPCs,
Yeah.
as you know, right? Like when
yeah,
you're
you played
playing.
some of those challenges.
Yeah, exactly. Where you get the 4 heavy flamers and things like that. But we basically we keep that spawning, and most of them are elites and things like that. But what we are changing though is we're getting rid of the forced 4-player scaling, because our NPCs, when you play in a group, the more players you have, the NPCs get a little bit of a health increase and a
Yeah.
tiny bit of a damage increase to compensate for greater players.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we're removing that though, so you can now play challenge mode in one player, and you won't get those extra health increases on the NPCs or that extra damage increase on the NPCs. NPCs, elite NPCs, their behaviors have been improved in a
From
lot
an-
of ways.
From
They're
an AI perspective?
from an AI
Okay.
perspective, yeah.
Yeah.
So you'll kind of see them. They'll. We wanted to kind of address difficulty in terms of more shooter challenge, Twitch challenge to the player, instead of just stat scaling.
Yeah, yeah.
So like we really wanted to, kind of improve their decision making, make
Yeah.
them a little bit more defensive of their lives, so they sprint to cover and they'll stay there, as opposed to occasionally
Yeah.
wandering out and shooting, and they'll move a little bit faster. They'll kind of do all of those things.
Take us through.
Yeah. So this is the time to kill in
Yeah.
NPC in currently versus what it will be in 1.4.
Exactly. I mean, you can see
Yeah.
the 1.4 ones. It just really goes to show that we want to keep that. As well as what I was talking about earlier. We want to make sure that as you level up, and you fight harder enemies, not level up, as your gear reaches new levels
Yeah.
of awesomeness,
Yep.
and you start taking on those bigger enemies,
Yeah.
that the time to kill doesn't increase.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's cool. And like you can see, there's no orange bars for 34 and 35 NPCs because they won't exist.
Because exactly.
We didn't miss something out. They will not exist. This isn't 1.4 in its entirety.
No,
This is an element
right.
of 1.4.
This is one of the big changes. There are other things, and there have been a lot of questions. There has been a lot of questions in the chat about gear. What are we going to do to gear? Because you highlighted a lot of issues with gear, the gear scaling, the mods, the contribution to all of that. We said we want to bring back the more of a shooter aspect. This is another part of the discussion. This is another part of the big changes we're bringing with 1.4.
Yeah.
So this is not something we will talk about today, but yeah, there will be another discussion about this because there are also big changes coming out there. But keeping in mind that the goal is that the experience is going to be much better. So I know that a lot of people said, yeah, but if you're reducing the health of the NPCs, I'm going to be completely OP and I'm going to wreck them.
Right.
That's part of the discussion. It's like we don't want you to be. I mean, you can be completely OP at some point because if you worked for this very good gear,
we want you to be overpowered. If
you can be overpowered.
If you have overpowered gear.
If you have overpowered gear, exactly.
But the whole power between the player and the NPC is going to be completely different in 1.4. So
Yes.
we're not just changing the NPCs. There will be changes as well to gear and player stats.
Yes. Wow. The patch notes for 1.4 are going to be pretty long.
ETA October. It's still 1.4 is still scheduled for release in October. We don't have a precise date to share yet because we want to make sure 1.4 is good.
Yeah.
So we're not going to commit to a date and then be like, actually, we're pushing it and whatever.
Yeah.
PTS.
October.
What about the PTS?
PTS, hopefully next week. Again, it's not 100% confirmed. We are trying to make it for next week, but depends on the progress we're doing in development and on the things we can put in this build. But hopefully next week.